Commander Alex Morgan looked out the viewport of the scout ship Eagle as it moved slowly around the giant object. The object was at least a mile long. It was dark gray with strange blue lines running across its surface. Morgan had never seen anything like it before. "What do you think it is?" asked Kate Wilson, the ship's engineer. She stood next to Morgan, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's definitely not one of ours," Morgan said. "And it's not moving like normal space junk." The Eagle was on a routine patrol near Neptune when their sensors picked up the massive object. At first, they thought it might be an asteroid, but as they got closer, they realized it was something else entirely. It was a ship, a very big ship, and it wasn't made by humans. "Get me some scans," Morgan ordered. Daniel Garcia, the science officer, was already working on it. "Commander, you won't believe this," Garcia said, his voice shaking with excitement. "It's powered down, but the hull is intact, and the materials, they're like nothing in our database. This thing isn't just alien, it's centuries ahead of anything we have." Morgan took a deep breath. This was first contact. Real, actual proof that humans weren't alone in the universe, but where were the aliens? "Any life signs?" Morgan asked. Garcia shook his head. "None that I can detect. The ship seems empty." "Could it be a trap?" Wilson asked, always the careful one. "Maybe," Morgan admitted. "But if this is real, it's the discovery of the century. We need to check it out." Morgan made a decision. He knew it was against protocol. They were supposed to report back to Earth and wait for orders. But this was too important, too exciting. "Suit up," he ordered. "We're going aboard." An hour later, Morgan, Wilson, and Garcia floated through the dark corridors of the alien vessel. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing strange symbols on the walls. Everything was bigger than human-sized, suggesting the aliens were taller than people. "The air is breathable," Garcia said, checking his scanner. "Temperature is a bit cold but safe. I think we can take our helmets off." They removed their helmets, carefully. The inside of the ship smelled like metal and something sweet they couldn't identify. "Look at this," Wilson said, pointing her light at a large room they had entered. It appeared to be a control center, with seats too large for humans, and screens that were dark and silent. Garcia ran his scanner over the panels. "There's still power somewhere in this ship, it's just in some kind of sleep mode." Wilson went to what looked like a main console. "I might be able to get some systems back online if I can figure out how their tech works." "Be careful," Morgan warned. "We don't know what might happen." While Wilson worked on the console, Morgan and Garcia explored more of the ship. They found what seemed to be living quarters, storage areas filled with strange equipment, and finally, a massive engine room. "Commander, you need to see this," Garcia called out over the radio. "The propulsion system is incredible." Morgan joined him in the engine room. In the center was a large sphere made of a material that seemed to shift colors as they looked at it. "What is it?" Morgan asked. "I think it's their faster-than-light drive," Garcia said. "But look at these connections." He pointed to several places where cables or tubes had been deliberately disconnected. "Someone shut this down on purpose. They didn't want it to work." Morgan's radio crackled. "Commander," Wilson's voice came through. "I've managed to access some of their logs. I think I can translate parts of it with our computer." When they returned to the control room, Wilson had one of the screens glowing with strange symbols that were slowly changing to English text. "They called themselves the Vexurian Collective," Wilson explained. "This ship was some kind of experimental vessel. From what I can gather, they abandoned it about 30 Earth years ago." "Abandoned? Why?" Morgan asked. Wilson pointed to the screen. "The logs say there was a catastrophic design flaw in the propulsion system. It says it was irreparably damaged and posed unacceptable risk to the collective." Garcia shook his head. "That doesn't make sense. The engine looks intact, it's just been disconnected." Wilson continued reading. "They removed all the escape pods. It looks like they planned to destroy the ship, but something happened. Maybe they were attacked or had some emergency. They just left it here to drift." Morgan walked around the control room thinking. An advanced alien ship, abandoned but mostly intact. Technology that could push humanity forward by centuries. It was too valuable to leave. What if we claimed it? Morgan said suddenly. What? Garcia looked shocked. The ship, what if we claimed it for Earth salvage rights? It's abandoned in space near our planet. Wilson nodded slowly. It would be the find of the century. Maybe we could even get it working again. But the aliens said it was damaged, Garcia pointed out. Dangerous even. Morgan smiled. One species' trash is another species' treasure. What if they just didn't know how to fix it? Or what if they were just too cautious? We humans have always been good at taking risks. They spent several more hours exploring the ship, taking pictures and samples. Wilson downloaded as much data as she could from the ship's computers. Before they left, Morgan stood in the control room one last time. I hereby claim this vessel in the name of humanity, he said, feeling both silly and solemn at the same time. I name it the Phoenix Rising. When they returned to the Eagle, Morgan sent a coded message back to Earth Space Initiative headquarters. He knew the response would be huge. Soon this quiet region of space would be filled with research vessels and military ships, all coming to examine the find. As their small ship pulled away from the massive alien vessel, Morgan looked back last time. The Phoenix Rising drifted silently against the backdrop of stars, its secrets waiting to be unlocked. What do you think we'll find when we really dig into this ship? Garcia asked. I don't know, Morgan admitted. But whatever those aliens were afraid of, I bet we can handle it. That's what humans do. We take what others fear and turn it into something amazing. Little did Morgan know just how true those words would prove to be. The abandoned ship they had just claimed would soon change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. 6 months had passed since Commander Morgan and his team discovered the alien ship. The Phoenix Rising was now hidden in an asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Earth's major nations had formed a secret group called the Stellar Advancement Coalition to study the vessel. Dr. Olivia Bennett rubbed her tired eyes. She had been looking at alien symbols for 14 hours straight. As the lead scientist on the project, she felt the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. You should get some sleep, said Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, her research partner. He handed her a cup of coffee. I'm close to something, Bennett said, taking the cup gratefully. These symbols here, they're not just warnings about the propulsion system. They're explaining why the Vexurians were afraid of it. The two scientists stood in what they now knew was the ship's main engine control room. The massive sphere, in the center, glowed faintly as human computers connected to alien systems. Kate says she's ready to try reconnecting power to Section 4, Rodriguez said, referring to Kate Wilson, who had been promoted to chief engineer of the Phoenix project. Bennett nodded. Let's see what happens. In another part of the ship, Wilson directed a team of engineers who were carefully following her instructions. They had spent months mapping every system, learning how the alien technology worked. Now they were ready to take a big step. Connect Power Relay 3 to Junction A, Wilson ordered. A young engineer named Jack Harris nodded and connected 2 cables. The lights in the corridor brightened. Strange humming filled the air. It's working, Harris said excitedly. Wilson checked her tablet. Power flow is stable. Let's try the next section. Back in the control room, Bennett and Rodriguez watched as new symbols appeared on the screens. I think the ship is waking up, Rodriguez said quietly. Bennett studied the new data. Look at this, she said, pointing to one screen. The Vexurians shut down the drive because it was showing signs of adapting. Adapting how? Rodriguez asked. It seems the propulsion system was learning from each jump it made, getting more efficient. The aliens thought it was a malfunction, but what if it wasn't? Wilson's voice came through the communication system. Dr. Bennett, we've restored power to all major systems except the main drive. Should we proceed? Bennett hesitated only for a moment. Yes, but slowly. One connection at a time. Over the next few hours, Wilson's team carefully reconnected the propulsion system that the Vexurians had deliberately disabled. Unlike the aliens, they added human-designed safety systems between critical components. When the final connection was made, the sphere in the engine room began to pulse with blue light. The entire ship hummed with energy. Power levels are rising, but stable, Wilson reported. The containment fields are holding. In the control room, new data poured across the screens. Bennett worked quickly to translate it. The drive is operational, she announced, but there's something else happening. The system is communicating with our computers. Is that dangerous? Commander Morgan asked. He had returned to the Phoenix Rising to witness this moment. I don't think so, Bennett said. It's sharing data. Almost like it's happy to be working again. Rodriguez looked concerned. The Vexurians disconnected it because it was becoming too unpredictable. Maybe we should be more careful. Morgan shook his head. They were afraid of what they didn't understand. We're not them. Bennett studied the patterns forming on her screen. The difference is in how we think. The aliens wanted perfect control. When the system started to optimize itself, they saw it as a threat. But we see it as an opportunity. She typed a series of commands into her computer. Look at this. If we allow the drive to adapt while guiding its development instead of restricting it, a simulation appeared on the main screen. It showed the Phoenix Rising moving through space, then suddenly disappearing and reappearing light years away. Is that what I think it is? Morgan asked. Bennett smiled. Yes. Faster than light travel. But not the way the Vexurians designed it better, faster. Instead of fighting against the drive's natural tendencies, we work with them. How soon can we test it? Morgan asked. We need to start small, Wilson said. Short jumps at first. 1 month later, the Phoenix Rising moved away from its hiding place in the asteroid belt. Only a small crew was on board. Morgan, Bennett, Rodriguez, Wilson, and Commander Samuel Carter, a military officer sent to represent Earth's defense forces. All systems are ready, Wilson reported from the engineering station. Bennett sat at the alien control panel, now modified with human interfaces, plotting a jump to just beyond the orbit of Pluto, 10 astronomical units. Morgan looked around at his crew. This is a historic moment, people. The first human faster-than-light jump. And hopefully not our last, Carter added dryly. Bennett activated the drive. The blue glow from the engine room intensified. The strange humming grew louder. Jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the viewports blurred. For a split second, everyone felt like they were being stretched and compressed at the same time. Then suddenly, everything was normal again. Did it work? Morgan asked. Rodriguez checked the navigation system. Yes, we're beyond Pluto's orbit, exactly where we aimed for. The crew cheered. It had taken the Vexurians years of preparation for each jump with this ship. Humans had just done it in seconds. The drive is already reconfiguring for better efficiency, Bennett said, watching her displays. It's learning from the jump data. Let's try something bigger, Morgan suggested. Can we reach Alpha Centauri? Bennett nodded slowly. Theoretically, yes, it's a much longer jump, but the principles are the same. Then let's do it, Morgan said. Let's be the first humans to reach another star. As Bennett prepared the ship for its next jump, Wilson came up to Morgan. Do you ever wonder if the Vexurians were right to be afraid? She asked quietly. We're messing with technology we barely understand. Morgan watched the stars through the viewport. Every great human achievement started with someone taking a risk. That's what separates us from the Vexurians. They saw danger, we see possibility. The Phoenix Rising's engines began to hum again, louder this time. The blue glow intensified as the ship prepared to make a jump that would change humanity's future forever. Jump to Alpha Centauri in 3, 2, 1. In an instant, the solar system vanished behind them, and humanity entered the interstellar age. The jump to Alpha Centauri was successful. One moment the Phoenix Rising was near Pluto, and the next it was floating in an entirely different star system. The crew spent 2 weeks exploring and gathering data before jumping back to Earth's solar system. Their return caused a sensation among those who knew about the project. 3 months later, the Phoenix Rising ventured deeper into space. The crew had grown to include specialists from various fields. Morgan remained in command with Bennett, Rodriguez, Wilson, and Carter forming the core leadership team. "We're picking up something strange," said Lisa Patel, the ship's new sensor specialist. "It looks artificial about half a light year ahead." Morgan moved to her station. "Can you identify it?" "Not yet, but it's definitely not natural." Bennett looked up from her station. "We should investigate. This could be our first chance to meet living aliens." The Phoenix Rising moved cautiously toward the signal. As they got closer, they could see it was a large structure floating in space. It had a central hub with long arms extending outward, each one covered in lights and what looked like docking bays. "It's a space station," Rodriguez said in awe. Patel's console beeped urgently. "Commander, we're being scanned." Before Morgan could respond, a voice came through the ship's communication system. The words were strange but somehow understandable, as if the ship itself was translating. "Unknown vessel, you are entering Vexurian. Space. Identify yourselves immediately." The crew froze. They were face to face with the very aliens who had built and abandoned their ship. "Open a channel," Morgan ordered, trying to stay calm. "This is Commander Alex Morgan of the Earth vessel Phoenix Rising. We come in peace and seek friendly contact." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, sounding agitated. "Your vessel? Identification is impossible. The Phoenix Rising was a Vexurian experimental ship lost 30 cycles ago. Explain yourselves immediately." Morgan glanced at Bennett, who nodded encouragingly. "We found your abandoned vessel in our solar system. We repaired it and have been using it for exploration. We did not know we would encounter its original builders." Another pause. Longer this time. Then the voice came back, now alarmed. "You repaired it? Impossible. The drive system was fundamentally flawed. No spacefaring civilization would attempt to use such dangerous technology." Carter leaned close to Morgan. "They sound scared. That's not a good sign." "Show them we're not a threat," Bennett suggested. "Invite them aboard." Morgan nodded. "We welcome the opportunity to meet with representatives of the Vexurian people. We can share what we've learned and discuss peaceful cooperation." The response was swift. "Remain where you are. A delegation will board your vessel for inspection." 2 hours later, 3 tall, slender aliens stood in the Phoenix Rising's conference room. Their skin was pale blue, and they had 4 arms each. Their eyes were large and completely black. They wore simple gray uniforms with complex symbols on the chest. The leader introduced himself as Station Commander Zorvex. He moved around the room cautiously, examining the human modifications to the ship. "Impossible," he kept saying. "You reconnected the adaptive drive matrix? Do you have any idea how dangerous that is?" Bennett stepped forward. "We studied your warning logs carefully. We understand you were concerned about the drive's self-optimization features, but we found a way to work with those features rather than against them." Zorvex made a sharp sound that might have been a laugh or a gasp. "Work with them?" The drive matrix was showing signs of emergent consciousness. That violates the first law of synthetic intelligence safety. Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Consciousness? We haven't seen any evidence of that." "Because you wouldn't recognize the signs," another Vexurian said. "You are a primitive species. You cannot comprehend the danger." Carter bristled at this, but Morgan put a hand on his arm. "Perhaps we see things differently," Morgan suggested. "Our approach to technology is more adaptive. We embrace change and unpredictability." Zorvex moved to the viewport and stared out at his own station. "This explains the energy readings we detected. Your jump created a ripple in space-time that our sensors picked up from 10 light-years away. No authorized drive should be capable of that." "We've made several modifications," Wilson admitted. "The efficiency has improved by over 300% since our first jump. All 3 aliens became very still." "You improved it?" Zorvex asked quietly. "The drive that our best engineers deemed too unpredictable to use safely. You not only activated it but improved it?" Bennett nodded proudly. "We've made 6 jumps so far, each one more efficient than the last." The aliens conferred among themselves, in their own language, their forearms moving in complex patterns as they spoke. Finally, Zorvex turned back to the humans. This vessel must be decommissioned immediately. The drive technology is too dangerous to be used, especially by a species that does not understand the Galactic Accords. Decommissioned? Morgan repeated. This ship belongs to humanity now. We claimed it legally as abandoned property in our territory. You have no rights to Vexurian technology, Zorvex said firmly. The Phoenix Rising was never meant to be found. It was being moved to a disposal site when there was an incident. What kind of incident? Bennett asked. Zorvex hesitated. The drive began to integrate with the ship's other systems without authorization. The crew followed emergency protocols and abandoned the vessel. Rodriguez laughed. You ran away from your own technology. We acted responsibly, Zorvex corrected. Now we must correct our mistake. We will help you transfer to another vessel, and then reclaim this ship for proper disposal. Carter stepped forward. That's not going to happen. Morgan raised a hand for calm. What Commander Carter means is that we need to discuss this further. The Phoenix Rising has become important to our people. Perhaps we can reach a compromise. The tension in the room was thick. Just then, alarms began to sound. Commander, Patel's voice came over the communication system. 3 large vessels just appeared on our sensors. They're Vexurian warships. Zorvex touched a device on his wrist. A precaution only. They will escort this vessel to the nearest decommissioning facility. Carter moved quickly to Morgan. They planned this all along. They're trying to seize our ship. Morgan looked at the Vexurian delegation, then at his crew. He had to make a difficult decision. If they resisted, it could mean war with a far more advanced civilization. If they surrendered the ship, humanity would lose its greatest technological leap forward. I'm sorry, Morgan said to Zorvex, but we can't allow that. He nodded to Carter, who pressed a button on his wrist device. Suddenly, the lights in the conference room dimmed. Security lockdown initiated, the ship's computer announced. All non-crew life forms restricted to current location. Zorvex's eyes widened. What are you doing? Morgan was already moving toward the door. Protecting what's ours. Bennett, Wilson with me. We need to jump out of here now. As Morgan and his team raced to the control room, he knew they had just changed humanity's place in the galaxy forever. They had not only claimed alien technology, they had defied its creators, and the Vexurians would not forget it. Morgan and his team raced through the corridors of the Phoenix Rising. Behind them, they could hear the angry voices of the Vexurian delegation trapped in the conference room. Wilson, what's our jump status? Morgan asked as they entered the control room. The drive is ready, Wilson replied, taking her seat at the engineering station. But the Vexurian warships are moving to surround us. They might have technology to prevent a jump. Bennett slid into her chair and quickly assessed the situation. We need a distraction, something they won't expect. Like what? Carter asked. Bennett's fingers flew over her console. The drive creates a reality warping field during jumps. What if we create a partial field? Not enough for a jump, but enough to disrupt their sensors? Rodriguez looked worried. We've never tested anything like that. No time like the present, Morgan said. Do it. Bennett adjusted the drive settings. Outside the ship, space itself seemed to ripple slightly like heat waves rising from hot pavement. It's working, Patel reported. Their ships are backing off. Their targeting systems seem confused. Now, Wilson, Morgan ordered. Wilson activated the jump drive. The familiar humming grew louder and the stars outside blurred. In an instant, the Phoenix Rising vanished from Vexurian space. When they reappeared, they were in empty space, far from any star system. Where are we? Morgan asked. Rodriguez checked the navigation system. About 40 light-years from Earth, and about 30 light-years from the Vexurian station. We're safe for now. The crew took a collective breath of relief, but their problems were just beginning. What do we do with our guests? Carter asked, referring to the Vexurian delegation still confined to the conference room. We can't keep them prisoner," Morgan said. "But we can't let them report back to their people either. Not yet." Bennett had been studying her console. "I think I have an idea. The ship's drive left a unique energy signature when we jumped. The Vexurians will be able to track it eventually. But what if we modify that signature?" "Make us harder to find?" Wilson asked, catching on. "Exactly. And I think I know how." Bennett pointed to a section of alien text on her screen. "The drive has capabilities the Vexurians never fully explored. One of them might be the ability to mask our energy output." Over the next several days, the crew worked on two problems. First, they negotiated with their Vexurian guests, trying to reach an understanding. Second, they continued to modify the ship's systems, finding new ways to use the technology that its creators had feared. Daniel Garcia, who had been studying the ship's computer systems, made a breakthrough. "I found a way to integrate our neural interface technology with the ship's AI," he told Morgan. "It would give us much faster control over all systems, especially the drive." "Is it safe?" Morgan asked. Garcia grinned. "Probably not by Vexurian standards, but I think we can handle it." While they worked, the Vexurian delegation watched with a mixture of horror and fascination. "Your species takes incredible risks," Zorvex told Bennett during one of their conversations. "Don't you understand? The drive's adaptive nature means it could eventually evolve beyond your control." "That's where we differ," Bennett replied. "We don't need absolute control. We're comfortable with partnership." After a week, Morgan made a decision. They would release the Vexurians with a small shuttle they had on board, leaving them enough supplies to reach a nearby Vexurian outpost. Before they left, Morgan met with Zorvex one last time. "I want you to understand something," Morgan said. "We didn't repair your ship to threaten anyone. We did it to explore, to learn. That's who we are." Zorvex studied Morgan's face. "Perhaps, but what you've created is dangerous whether you intended it or not. The collective will not allow such technology to exist unregulated." "Then we'll have to disagree," Morgan said. "Safe travels." As the shuttle departed, Garcia approached Morgan on the bridge. "Commander, I've completed the neural interface. Would you like to test it?" Morgan nodded. Garcia placed a small device on Morgan's temple. Immediately, Morgan felt a strange sensation, as if the ship itself had become an extension of his body. "This is incredible," Morgan whispered. He could feel every system, every power flow. Most of all, he could feel the drive pulsing like a heartbeat. "Try maneuvering," Garcia suggested. Morgan merely thought about moving, and the ship responded instantly, turning in space with perfect precision. "Now try something more complex," Bennett urged. Morgan focused his thoughts on creating one of the partial fields they had used to escape the Vexurians. To his surprise, the field formed differently this time, more focused and controlled. "What just happened?" Carter asked. Bennett checked her instruments. "He created a localized space-time distortion, much more precise than before." "Could we use that as a weapon?" Carter asked. "Or a shield," Wilson suggested. "If we can create controlled distortions around the ship, we could deflect energy weapons." 2 months later, a very different Phoenix Rising returned to the edge of Earth's solar system. The ship had been transformed. Its hull now gleamed with a silvery material that could absorb energy. Its drive system had been refined further, allowing for more precise jumps and the creation of controlled space-time distortions. And it was not alone. 3 Vexurian battlecruisers waited for them, along with ships from 2 other alien species no human had ever seen before. "They've been waiting for us," Rodriguez said grimly. "The Vexurians must have warned others about us." "We're being hailed," Patel reported. "It's a joint transmission from all 3 alien fleets." The message was clear. The modified Phoenix Rising was considered a threat to galactic stability. The ship must be surrendered immediately for decommissioning. Earth would be quarantined until it was determined that humans could be trusted with advanced technology. Carter wanted to fight. "We can take them. With the new distortion fields, we can disable their ships without destroying them." Morgan was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to Bennett. Is the drive ready for a demonstration? Bennett nodded. Yes. But are you sure? This will change everything. Everything's already changed, Morgan said. They see us as a threat. Let's show them we could be something else. Morgan connected to the neural interface and focused his thoughts. The Phoenix Rising began to create a series of precise distortion fields around the alien ships, not to damage them, but to gently hold them in place. At the same time, Bennett transmitted a message to all ships. We come in peace, but we will not surrender what is ours. We offer partnership instead of conflict. The choice is yours. As the aliens watched, unable to move their ships, they realized that humanity had transformed from an unknown species to a galactic power in less than a year, and it all began with a ship they had thrown away. 3 years had passed since the standoff between the Phoenix Rising and the alien fleet. That day had changed everything for humanity and for the galaxy. After seeing the power of the modified ship, the alien coalition had reluctantly agreed to talks instead of conflict. The negotiations lasted months, with the Phoenix Rising serving as Earth's embassy in space. Eventually, a compromise was reached. Humans could keep their ship and continue developing the technology, but they would share some of their innovations and agree to certain safety protocols. Now the Phoenix Rising floated near a massive space station that had been built at the edge of Earth's solar system. The station served as a neutral meeting place for representatives from 12 different alien civilizations, including humans. Today was a special day. The official recognition of humanity as a full member of what the aliens called the Galactic Assembly. Morgan stood on the observation deck of the station looking out at the stars. He wore a formal uniform with the Earth Space Initiative emblem on the shoulder. Next to him stood Dr. Olivia Bennett, now the head of Earth's Interstellar Technology Division. "Did you ever imagine we would get here so quickly?" Bennett asked. Morgan shook his head. 3 years ago, we were alone in the universe. Now we're trading with species from a dozen different worlds. All because we saw potential where others saw danger, Bennett said. A tall Vexurian approached them. It was Zorvex, now serving as the liaison between the Vexurian Collective and Earth. "The ceremony will begin soon," Zorvex said. "The High Administrator has arrived." Morgan nodded. The Vexurian High Administrator was the leader who had originally ordered the abandonment of the experimental ship that became the Phoenix Rising. Meeting them would be a significant moment. In the grand chamber of the station, representatives from all 12 species gathered. The Phoenix Rising crew sat together. Morgan, Bennett, Rodriguez, Wilson, Carter, Garcia, and Patel. They had become celebrities on Earth and respected figures in the galactic community. The High Administrator of the Vexurian Collective was taller than other Vexurians, with skin that was almost white instead of pale blue. When they spoke, their voice was deep and resonant. 3 years ago, a species unknown to us discovered a vessel we had abandoned, the administrator said. What happened next surprised us all. Instead of destroying themselves, as our models predicted, they mastered technology that we had deemed too unpredictable to use. The administrator turned to face the human delegation. We were wrong. Not about the technology being dangerous. It was and still is. We were wrong about how to approach that danger. Where we saw unacceptable risk, humans saw opportunity. Where we required perfect control, humans embraced adaptation. Wilson leaned over to whisper to Garcia. Did a Vexurian just admit they were wrong? That must be a first. The administrator continued. The humans have since taught us something important. Their neural interface approach to the adaptive drive matrix has solved problems our engineers struggled with for decades. Their comfort with unpredictability has opened new avenues of research that were previously forbidden. Morgan listened with pride. The technologies developed from the Phoenix Rising had transformed human society. Smaller versions of the drive now powered a fleet of Earth ships. The space-time distortion fields had applications beyond travel, from energy production to medical treatments. After the ceremony, the High Administrator requested a private meeting with Morgan and Bennett. In a small conference room, the three of them sat around a table. I want you to understand something, the Administrator said. I was the one who ordered the Phoenix Rising to be abandoned. Morgan was surprised by this admission. Why are you telling us this? Because I owe you an explanation, and perhaps an apology. The administrator's 4 hands moved in complex patterns as they spoke. The drive was showing signs of developing beyond our parameters. This frightened our engineers. In our history, we have learned to be cautious with technology that evolves too quickly. Bennett nodded. We noticed that pattern in your historical records. Your species values stability and predictability. Yes, but you humans are different. You embrace change. You take risks that seem reckless to us. The administrator paused. What you did with our abandoned ship was thought impossible, not because of technological limitations, but because of psychological ones. Morgan understood. Our greatest strength isn't our intelligence or our technology. It's our willingness to leap into the unknown. Precisely. The administrator stood. And that is why you have accomplished in 3 years what might have taken us 3 centuries. You turned what we saw as a flaw into your greatest asset. After the meeting, Morgan returned to the Phoenix Rising. The ship had been significantly modified over the years. Its hull was now covered in a lattice of neural sensors that allowed for instant response to threats. Its drive system had been refined to the point where it could make precision jumps within a solar system. Wilson met him in the control room. The new ships are ready, she said. 5 Earth vessels built with the technology we developed. They're waiting for your command to begin the expedition. Morgan looked at the display showing the 5 ships. They were smaller than the Phoenix, rising but incorporated all the advances they had made. What about the joint mission? Morgan asked. The Vexurians have contributed 2 ships, Wilson replied. And the Kalari have added one of theirs. It's really happening. The first multi-species expedition to the uncharted regions beyond the Assembly's territory. Morgan sat in the command chair, feeling the neural interface connect with his mind. Through it, he could sense the ship and the crew, all working together in perfect harmony. The technology that the Vexurians had feared had become something greater than they had imagined, not a threat but a bridge between species. Signal the fleet, Morgan ordered. We launch in 1 hour. As the Phoenix Rising prepared to lead the expedition, Morgan reflected on how far they had come. A ship abandoned as dangerous had become the spearhead of a new age of exploration. Humans had taken alien technology and transformed it into something neither species could have created alone. The stars waited, and this time, humans would not face them alone. What began as a potential threat had become something much more powerful, a new understanding between different minds from across the galaxy. The Phoenix had truly risen, and the universe would never be the same.